Hello again, fine people of YouTube. I'm back with my weekly vloggity vlog. Yep, that's right. And I have quite a bit of stuff to talk about in this vlog for you guys because this past week, as you guys probably have known, I had a pretty damn exciting spring break. So this vlog is going to be dedicated entirely to what I did. So without further ado, let's do this. Alright, so I'm just going to cut right to the chase because as I just said before, I have a ton of stuff I want to talk about with you guys, so let's just get right into it. Alright, so for the first day of our trip, it was actually, well technically I guess it was 2 Fridays ago, when we stayed overnight, or at least some of us just stayed overnight at one of our group leaders' houses. It's not too far from here, it's just not even a mile away. So one of those group leaders just came here, picked me up with my stuff, and then we just spent the night at their house. And it was a pretty good night because some of us stayed up a little bit and watched the classic Adam Sandler movie Happy Gilmore. Just never gets old. Absolutely love it every time. So yeah. Alright, so then right after that, we then just went to sleep because the next morning we had to get up bright and early, I believe it was 5 a.m., to start our journey. And how we got there is, of course, by driving. Road trip! So we had a pretty long day of travel ahead of us. So for our traveling, we of course went down south, down the major interstate here in Minnesota, 35, and then we went through such states as Iowa, which I believe we made a quick stop at a gas station there, then through Missouri for a little while, Kansas, and then our final destination for today was Oklahoma, specifically a church in a little suburb outside of Oklahoma City. And man, I just have to say, I'm very appreciative of the accommodations we got at this one church in the city of Oklahoma, which was called Edmond. So yeah, I'm very appreciative of that. So the accommodations we got were pretty nice because not only was there just the main church there, but right across from it, there's this little youth center, and it was just perfect because there were a bunch of couches, some bean bags, and also then a bunch of other fun stuff we could do. Oh, excuse me. So once we got there and got our stuff settled in, we then proceeded to play some games like catchphrase, and then also some pool and foosball for a while. So all in all, it was a pretty fun night. Then after that, I believe the final thing we did for that day was some little reflections, and then after that we went to sleep because we did get up sort of early, but not nearly as early as we did for our initial day of travel, and we got up at 7 a.m. because that church we were at had an 8 a.m. service, so we decided, well, why not go to church since we're there anyway, so yeah. Alright, so then after Mass there, we then went to this one little gathering hall right by the main church to have some donuts and coffee. Yum-y. And I just say those donuts were probably some of the most delicious donuts I've had in a long time. So, awesome. Alright, so then after the coffee and donuts thing was all done, we then gathered our stuff, put it in the van, and then continued on our last leg of our trip. So that was a pretty fun part of the trip because we went through the rest of Oklahoma, the panhandle of Texas, which has the main area, or which has one of the major areas of Texas, Amarillo, and I thought it was just pretty awesome going through there because that was my first time in Texas, as it was also in Kansas and Oklahoma. So yeah. Yep, so then once we got through Texas, we finally got into New Mexico, the land of enchantment. Yup. So then, after we drove for a while, our final destination of the day ended up being Santa Fe, specifically a little campsite just outside of Santa Fe, which I'll talk about in a little while. So then, once we arrived in Santa Fe for the night, the first thing we did was eat at this one little cafe that had authentic New Mexican food. So let's just say that was a really good dinner. I think it had like some sort of enchilada and taco plate, so it's pretty delicious. Then, after all of us finished up our dinner there, we hit the van again, and then we stopped at this one little grocery store that was nearby that restaurant. And I believe we just picked up some little things like peanut butter, jelly, and maybe some bread too. So, yeah, just a quick stop for that. And then finally, our last thing we did that night was drive to that campsite, which as I just said before, was a little outside of Santa Fe. So we just spent the night there, and we did things like have a fire, then of course slept in a tent. So actually, before we went to sleep, we all had a little reflection around the fire, which I helped make. So that was pretty nice. And then once all that was said and done, we just all hit the sack in our tent and got ourselves some Z's before our next early morning, which I believe started at, I think, 5 or 6 in the morning. So once we all woke up, we just all gathered our things and put them in the car. Or actually, I think we might have done that the night before, or just that same night, so that we could just get up and at 'em right away in the morning. So yeah. Alright, so once we were all up then, some of us helped take down the tent, and then we packed that in its bag, then in the van. Then we hit the road once again for the second leg of our trip, which I have to say it was a pretty fun day. So what we did that day, we drove from whatever area this was outside of Santa Fe, and we kept heading north. And then first we hit this one little village, I believe it's called Juarez Pueblo, and in there for a while we hit up this one little convenience store, then went a little more into that cute little town, and went to a cafe, did some shopping and stuff. Well, unfortunately, we couldn't do a ton of shopping because, strangely, a lot of things were closed there during the week, which I find to be interesting. So that was kind of a bust, unfortunately. So once we found out we couldn't do much there, we then hit the road for a little bit again, and headed to some hot springs just right outside of this little village. And man, I'd say that was a pretty good time because, like, the water was nice and warm, as implied by the name. So I thought that was pretty awesome. So what to say about this? Hot springs are nature's hot tubs. Yeah, buddy. Alright, so then once all that was said and done, we hit the road for our final trip of the day, which was towards our monastery in this city of New Mexico, or I should say town since it's pretty small, Abiquiu. And in case you're wondering, that's how you pronounce that. And actually, before we got there, we actually did stop at this little gas station convenience store, which I'm wearing here in my shirt. Oh yeah, that's right. I keep forgetting it's mirrored. Yep. So we stopped at this little general store, Bode's General Store, and of course that's where I got this awesome shirt. And then some of us who didn't have lunch at the cafe in that little village had lunch at this convenience store. They had like a little restaurant inside of there, and I didn't have anything because I actually had lunch at a cafe we stopped at in that little village earlier that day. So all I got was just one 0-calorie cola, and then of course this shirt. So yeah. Alright, so then once all was said and done there, we then went on our final drive of the day to our monastery, which we stayed at for which which we're going to for our mission trip. So yeah, and I'd say that was an interesting part of the drive because we had for a while we were still on a stretch of normal highway, and then for a while after that we had to go onto a dirt road, and this monastery is 13 miles down that dirt road off the highway, so it's in a pretty peaceful place. So yeah. So then once we arrived there, we all took out our bags, and then we all went into our rooms of this guest house we stayed in, and it was pretty nice because like even though it's called a guest house, each of us has our own rooms, and well, except for the group leaders, they both stayed in the same room. So yeah. So then once all that was said and done, we then just participated in the monks' final time of prayer that day. So that was pretty nice. I believe there's a little dinner after that too. So yeah. And then once that was done, we just had this one quick reflection for today, and then we all hit the hay because each morning there we had to get up pretty darn early. Yeah, 3:30 in the morning to be exact, because each day the monks started their first time of prayer at 4 in the morning, so they rose before the sun, which I think is crazy. So I got used to waking up at 3:30 in the morning, or I had to get used to waking up at that time in the morning for a week, but I probably would never wake up that early in my life again unless I had to. So pretty crazy stuff. Alright, so then like some of the other things we did there besides participating in their services or in their times of prayer were also just walking around and just checking out the surrounding desert and mountain landscapes around us in our free time. And then also we also did some work for the monks there because every day, I believe it's for from 9 in the morning to 12 noon or something. So just a few hours every day. We just did some various tasks for those monks around there. So it was like just whether it just be some simple things like managing their gift shop, sweeping inside the place, or doing things like watering plants. And also some of us even did things like moving rocks. So that was pretty crazy. But I thought it was a great experience because we got to see what the monks' lives were like outside of prayer. Because I really didn't know they had too much of life outside of that, but apparently they do. Guess you learn something new every day. Alright, so all in all, I'd just say my experience there was a pretty awesome one. Because, as I just said, I gained a deeper insight as to how monks actually live, and I thought that was pretty cool. So, when we reached our final day there, we finally reached our final day there, we just all had to pack up our stuff and then put in our van, which was parked a little away from our guest house, and then from there we got up nice, bright and early on that next morning we had to leave, which was, I believe, last Saturday. Yeah, last Saturday. And then we started day 1 of 2 of our return trip back up here to Minnesota. And man, I have to say that was a long time in the car because we were in the car for a grand total of I believe 19 hours, I think, because we had to take a different route back, or we started a different route back up here, and we started that by going up through beautiful, colorful Colorado. Yeah. And actually, there's something else I want to show you guys too. I think this is it. Yep, so I think you can get this in frame. There we go. This is another thing I got. This here beautiful Colorado shirt. So in addition to this, I of course got that as well when we were in New Mexico. So yeah, all in all, that day of the trip was pretty fun. and I actually, believe it or not, got to drive some part of that trip for a grand total of 8 hours. Yes, believe it or not, I actually drove for that long, so I'm pretty impressed with myself. Now, granted, that was a pretty simple drive because the part or the stretch of Colorado that I drove through is the northeastern part, and it was just absolutely nothing. It was probably the biggest stretch of just nothing I've ever been in slash drove through. So yeah, it was kind of boring, but hey, I had someone sitting by me that kept me entertained whilst I was doing this drive. So yeah. And then I also got to actually drive into Nebraska too, and I drove there for a while, or I kept driving for a while until eventually we finally found somewhere we could stop, and then I switched with one of the other drivers again. So yeah. So after we did that, we just kept on driving for a while until we eventually got to our destination for the night in Nebraska, which was this one family's house, of which one of our trip leaders knew. So we got some pretty nice accommodations there, and we just had some fun there for a while until we honestly slept again, and then hit the road for our final stretch of the trip home. So yeah. So that stretch of the trip, it wasn't the most exciting because going through Nebraska and then Iowa again, not the most exciting scenery. So yeah. But then the most exciting part of that, our final part of the trip, was when we got back in. I believe it was when we got back into Minnesota. Whoever was driving wanted to make a quick stop at McDonald's to be exact. Oh, and speaking of the devil, I just got back from a McDonald's around here with a little coffee. Oh, I just heard I got mail. I'll check that in a little while. So back to my story. When we stopped at that McDonald's, whoever was driving today wanted to get 2 cones from McDonald's, and man, I just got so surprised by what he did next. I did not see it coming at all. So after he paid, of course he got his cones, and what he did with the first one, it just really caught me off guard. And it took me a little while just to sink into me that he actually did some coning. Not just a single instant of coning, but double coning. It was just so funny. Oh man. But if I had the video, I would totally show you, but unfortunately I do not have it. Yeah, so I got to witness a double coning. Okay. So then after that we just continued our final stretch of the trip. We had to stop somewhere to drop some people off. Or we stopped at 2 people's houses to drop them off. And then after that our final stop was obviously coming back here because I believe 2 or 3 of us live right on campus, so that was our final stop. And then had to say goodbye to my group leaders, and also as a little gift they gave me some mix CDs too, with which I ripped onto my iTunes library to put on my iPad and iPhone, or iPad and iPhone, excuse me. So yeah. So then the rest of that day when I got back was just spent ripping those CDs and also then uploading some photos to Facebook and stuff. So all in all, as I said before, it was a pretty damn awesome spring break I had, and I'm proud to say that I did something like I did. So yeah. Alright, so I sure hope you guys enjoyed my vlog about what I did this spring break. So before I wrap things up, all I have to say is, first, if you haven't been following me on Twitter already, I'm at WildFan from Wisconsin, or at WildFan from WI. Also, as usual, be sure to give this video a like if you liked it, and also comment below, let me know you liked it, and also just like some things you did, like maybe this past weekend, if you weren't on spring break like I was, because I know I know like we had a pretty late spring break compared to other universities, so yeah. And also, last but not least, please subscribe to this channel if you haven't done so already. As I said before, I would just love to see the subscriber count of this channel go up, and subscribing again, it lets me know that you guys appreciate the content that I upload here. So yeah. Alright, so now I'm going to officially let you guys go. I've been talking for exactly 20 minutes now, so all I have to say now is peace.